Good morning, class. Today we're going to talk about something way cool. Ultimately, it'll be about Star Wars and about the Hunger Games. But for right now, we have an interesting topic called archetype. There it is, how you spell. Well, you ask yourself, why should I know this? Because every human being already knows this. An archetype, example, you're going to write this down. It is an ideal example of something or someone. We share a similarity of understanding about how the world works. So we have several kinds of archetypes. We have situations that we seem to understand altogether. We have symbols that we seem to understand altogether. And we have characters that we seem to understand that they always work. So let's go over now and be even more in-depth and crazy here, and let's talk about how archetypes came to be. The collective unconscious is a theory put forth by a man named Carl Jung. He was Sigmund Freud's student. You know, Sigmund Freud, everything is about sex. Carl Jung thought sex was important, because it is, but it's not all about sex. He was more concerned with other reasons why people might be having some difficulties in understanding the world. In his coming up with all kinds of knowledge, he came up with a theory of the collective unconscious. A theory of the collective unconscious basically boils down to all humans share the same understanding of how the world works, no matter when or where they live. And you're like, well, so what the hell does that mean? It means nothing, right? What it actually means, let's take an example over here, is that we have the idea of darkness. Immediately when I say darkness, all of you know what that is. Of course you know what darkness is. On the very first day you were born, you knew what darkness was. Babies know dark. Babies know light. When I say light, in your brain, even if you don't want to, light shows up, right? Okay, so let's go back and figure out how darkness came to mean death and the unknown. What in human experience made people understand that dark was bad, light was good? How did we get there? Well, let's go back to the caveman. Here's our early caveman. He has no clothes, he has no weapons, he has no fur, no claws. His eyesight is relatively poor, her hearing isn't as good as all of the animals, hence his little frown. He doesn't have much to protect himself. So he hides in a cave, which I didn't put up there, but I could. He decides to hide in a cave in the darkness, because in the darkness come the animals that will eat you. The saber-tooth comes at 9, the celery stalks at midnight. So this poorly accoutred caveman is left to defend himself with very little weapons. So in the darkness, we find a cave and we hide so we don't end up like this poor little guy with his death. So human beings began to understand darkness is scary. Darkness is death. We don't understand, we can't see. All human beings know this. I want you to think about the monster under the bed. Yes. All of you know about the monster under the bed. Some of you are still refusing to sleep with Lele hanging over the other bed. Me too, I understand. There is a monster under the bed. Now, in our real human experience, unless you have a cat, there is no monster under the bed, and yet every human being in America, Australia, Fiji, on the moon, and soon to be in Mars, all of those people would know that there's a monster under the bed. Because at one point, there was a monster under the bed. And then we passed on the knowledge of the monster under the bed into our brains, and we allowed that memory, or we had that memory, inherited in our DNA. So that when you were born, and you were 2, you automatically knew that the dark was scary and unknown, and that there is something hiding in the closet, and there is in fact a monster under the bed. This collective unconscious that all human beings share began to be recorded then. And we find out that you don't even need to know about archetypes to understand what lecture I'm giving. So now you're already bored. But don't be bored, because you know this stuff, and it will be good. All right, we talked about darkness. Well, the opposite of darkness must be light. And we know that daylight is a wonderful thing because in daylight, human beings see better. And all the dangerous animals go to sleep. So light becomes safety, happiness, the crops grow, the light dawns, everything is better, the sun will rise and things will be good. All human beings know this everywhere and throughout time, and that knowledge is again recorded in Le Brain. Welcome back. Okay, so why did we have to know all that about archetype and the collective unconscious? That's because we're going to study literature, and you're going to read you're going to go to movies, and you're going to read books, and you're going to hear people talk about them and analyze them, and you're going to say, I don't understand, except that you will understand if you let the force enter your mind, right? And you stay with me. All right, so archetypal characters. We have so many. You already understand the hero archetype. We're thinking as I talk, you're thinking about Star Wars, dun, 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 The Hunger Games, Harry Potter, The Lord of the Rings, The Lion King, or any Disney movie you happen to be into right now, because all of them are archetype. And maybe The Wizard of Oz, called The Lizard of Oz by my children. All of these movies have characters that fall into archetypal patterns. The plot is archetypal, and the situations are archetypal, the symbols are archetypal, and the characteristics of the main characters. So let's start here. Archetype. We have heroes or heroines, right? We have Katniss. In order to be a full archetypal hero, you have to fall into or have most of these characteristics. And you will find that they do. Our hero has a mother who is a virgin. If you look at the mythology, Greek mythology, that often happens. Or if you want to, you can look in the Bible. There's an example. But more often, they have some sort of unusual birth where people do not know that they are born and they don't know where they were born. And that is one of the first sort of requisites. You know, something weird. Harry Potter, remember when he was born? People tried to kill him, which of course we're going to get to in a moment. All right, we don't know often where the character came from. Luke doesn't know who his real parents are. They told him a story. Katniss does know who her mother is, right? But she doesn't know who her father is. Harry Potter never met his parents, right? He didn't know that he was a wizard. How terribly sad for him living in that little cupboard. Frodo didn't know all about the magic. All of these characters, the Lion King, he knew a little bit. We knew he came from Pride Rock. They don't have to fit all of them. But often the characters themselves do not know their true history. At birth, someone wants to kill them. Almost everyone here. At birth, Luke almost got killed by his father. Katniss not so much, a little bit when she's older. Harry Potter, Voldemort tried to kill him when he was a baby. They tried to kill Frodo when he was very young. I think Moses, if you know that, the Lion King Scar tries to kill him because he knows he tries to kill Simba because he understands that he's going to inherit Pride Rock. Then, because someone wants to kill them, they have to be raised often by foster parents. So let's go to the Lion King. When Simba Scar tried to kill him, he had to run away to the forest to be raised by Timon and no, I messed that up. Timon and Pumbaa. There we go. Frodo is raised by his uncle Bilbo, and Luke in Star Wars is raised by his aunt and uncle. Then they have to come back as an adult. Simba has to come back to Pride Rock and save the world. Katniss has to come home and save her people. Harry Potter has to come back to the Weasleys for God knows what reason. You know this one. They return as an adult to set things right. Now, parts of the story that we often don't get is that these characters come back, that Simba rules well for a very long time, that Luke ultimately is a great leader, that... There we go. They rule very well. Unfortunately, because of some mistake that they made when they were younger, they fall from grace. They didn't get the training. Luke, we find out, didn't get the full Jedi training because he went to save his friends, Leia and Han, so he did not stay as long as he should have with Yoda. And as we're beginning to get hints of in the new Star Wars trilogy, there's trouble. If that story follows the archetype as it should, Luke will have lost favor. Notice he was in a gray cloak. And he will be driven away from his home. He'll show up somewhere else, and then often there is a mysterious death. After they're dead, the body often disappears mysteriously and then reappears. So when Darth Vader dies, his body disappears, but then the next time we see him, he is Anakin Skywalker, and he is a ghost. Obi-Wan's body disappears, he becomes a ghost. Yoda's body just disappears, he reappears as some sort of a ghost or a spirit figure who's now able to pass on information, but they don't have a physical body. This sort of death and rebirth is critical to the archetypal understanding, and this story is told and retold in different names, but the story stays the same. All right, so we do have Luke. We have King Arthur. His body disappears. He's called the once and future king. I put Elvis Presley there because for a while after Elvis Presley died, people swore they saw him, and he gave them cars and things. It was really quite, I was a little worried there for a while that we would have the Church of the Blue Suede Shoes. Then we have the young man from the provinces. This is that young foster child raised away from everyone, so no one can find him, so that he's not in danger. And he learns things that no one else learns, like Luke learned to shoot womp rats, right, on Tatooine, which ends up saving the whole universe at the end of the first movie. We have characters. Luke is not raised at home. Hercules, all of you saw that movie, also not raised by foster parents. They learn things. Simba, King Arthur, the list goes on. You need to know that they come up with new solutions to old problems. Womp rats. Number 3, initiates. These are the rites of passage. Young heroes, that's us too. Heroes and heroines have to be trained by your driving instructor, right? We are all initiates learning how to drive. And then you have some sort of a ceremony. You are naive. You often wear white. Purity, innocence. You are entering into a new stage, but you are young and innocent. And in Star Wars, we have Luke and Leia, and you will notice that they wear white. You will also notice that the young initiates have to go through these series of rites of passages in order to become mature. All right, so we have Luke, Leia, brides, karate belts. You wear white. Eventually you get a black belt, but in that case the black does not mean bad. It means experience. All right, mentors. These are your teachers, your counselors, your mother, father figures. We have Obi-Wan, right, who teaches Luke about the Force and gives him the magic weapon, which he then uses to save the universe. We have Merlin teaching King Arthur, and we have Timon, Pumbaa, and Gandalf from Lord of the Rings. They enter into a mentor-pupil relationship where they learn the skills to survive. In Star Wars, they learn the ways of the Force. All right? For the Hunger Games, Hamish is Katniss's mentor. Harry Potter has Dumbledore and many of the other teachers, right? Lord of the Rings is, of course, Gandalf. We also have the mentor pupil has to give the magic weapon. So they give the magic weapon. Obi-Wan hands the magic weapon to Luke. Katniss has her bow. We did not necessarily see that, but she does have a magic weapon. Hakuna Matata helps Simba grow and learn not to take too much to heart while he needs to grow and learn to do things. And that, in fact, is a magic weapon. All right, we move on to the devil figures. These are the ultimately evil guys. They offer power and money to your soul. I highly recommend the new Lucifer TV show. Obviously, Satan, Lucifer, right? But in the Star Wars, we have the Emperor. Darth Vader also plays the devil figure in the first movie, but later he will play a different archetype called the apparently evil figure with a good heart. Scar is a true devil figure. He never changes. He's a bad guy. All right, father-son conflict because they are not raised together. They meet as adults. There's tension. And the, what is that called? The mentor is more important to our hero than the father. We have King Arthur, we have Oedipus Rex, we have Darth Vader to Luke. We have another important archetype called the outcast. You've seen this many, many times. This is when a character has been banished for some sin or crime. They wander around in the darkness. People don't pay attention to them. These are the sad little nerds. Of course, we all find ourselves, and then we're no longer outcasts. But in the movie Star Wars, we have Obi-Wan wandering out into Tatooine's desert. Oedipus is left after he has blinded himself and poked his eyes out. We have Simba running around in the forest with Timon and Pumbaa. I'm tired today. All right, the scapegoat, very important. Often outcasts become scapegoats, and if we can blame someone, then everything will be all right. In America, we have lots of scapegoats right now. Depends on when you see this. All Muslims have been a scapegoat. In Hitler's Germany, it was, of course, the Jews. Some people think illegal aliens. But in some famous scapegoats, anyone who is a witch, we're always sacrificing goats to make the gods happy. Virgins often are a good scapegoat. I never figured that one out, but if you throw a virgin in a volcano, everything is good. All of the tributes in the Hunger Games. Oedipus becomes sort of the scapegoat for his father's sin. We have Jesus, of course, who died for all of our sins. And we have Obi-Wan, who decides to sacrifice himself in a sort of a public ceremony. He allows Darth Vader to kill him. And this allows Luke and his companions to get onto the Millennium Falcon and fly away safe. And then all is well. Unfortunately, if you kill a scapegoat, they can sometimes become more powerful. And then you release Obi-Wan from his body, and then he can say to Luke, use the Force, which then saves the universe. All right, star-crossed lovers, people in love, and they can't get together. And if you've ever watched a soap opera, we all know about those guys. And we have Romeo and Juliet being the most important ones. Leia and Han take a while. Darth Vader and Padme, Katniss and Peeta, it just takes a long time for them to get together. Sometimes everybody dies. The girl dies, you die, everybody dies. Hunting group of companions, loyal friends, willing to go into hell with you. And we have Timon, Pumbaa, Nala, Knights of the Round Table. Ooh, I just cut my hand off. Oh no. Chewbacca, Obi-Wan, Leia, R2-D2, anyone who comes, right? Toto. No, excuse me, Toto is a friendly beast. Loyal retainers are servants. Those are the people you have to supposedly pay to go with you. Not the same, they are companions, but they are servants. And they reflect the nobility of the hero, so these paid servants end up becoming heroic themselves. Like Samwise Gamgee in Lord of the Rings, who follows Master Frodo all the way to the Mountain of Doom. And in fact, throws the ring in. Then we have C-3PO and R2-D2, who are the droids, who work for Luke, and yet, in fact, also help save the universe. Creatures of nightmare. These are the monsters under the bed. They're our deepest fears, our most scariest thing. They threaten the world, they threaten the hero. We used to have werewolves, vampires, and zombies before we decided to date them. If you notice creatures of nightmare, if you're a connoisseur of the horror flick, you will notice that often these creatures have sort of parts of their body that look like a brain, or your intestines exposed. That is because archetypally, in our collective unconscious, we understand brain injury, gut injury, death. So, our creatures of nightmare often actually look like a mortal wound. Okay, friendly beast. We want nature to be on the side of the hero. And so then, anyone who has an animal or a cat, or Bill the pony, Toto, Chewbacca is our friendly beast, then you know that these people are in fact good. The apparently evil with a figure with a good heart seems bad, but changes actually because of the nobility of the hero. So pay attention to Han Solo. In fact, Han Solo acts like a jerk. He's only doing it for the money. He's wearing black, except he's wearing a white shirt. And as the movie goes, you see more and more of the white, because as he's with Luke and Leia, he ultimately understands that maybe there's more by the time the series ends, he is a hero, no longer a bad guy. Darth Vader, in the third of the original movies, ultimately puts aside his bad ways to save his son, who is being electrocuted by the Emperor, right? And he makes the son and lift the Emperor. They're both being electrocuted. He throws the Emperor down. It shorts out his mask and kills him. But in fact, his soul is saved. The next time we see him, he is a normal-looking Anakin man, no longer Darth Vader. Okay, so you have to look for clues that may indicate that these guys will turn out to be good people. Women. A sad thing happened to women for a long time is that we only had one or two bad archetypes to play. There was a lot of focus on les damsels in distress. Help me, right? Oh, and you had to be saved by the hero. We don't have to do that anymore. Of course, Leia gets into trouble, but she's also the one that gets herself out of trouble and everyone else too, right? Katniss gets into trouble. She is in distress, but she ends up being the hero. So this is a lovely thing, is that we are no longer confined to having to wait. This is a good thing. But for most of ancient literature, lots of help me helping. The Earth Mother, symbolic of fertility, spiritual or emotional help. These are the lovers, the caretakers, the baby makers. They often have big, and they're a little round and they're soft, a little round like me. These are the people that are necessary as our healers. You'll notice that Katniss kind of has a healing quality. She takes care of Peeta. And Leia in the third movie lets her hair down. She wears green and brown. She's ready to make babies with Han. The Temptress, this one we know. This is the bad girl, right? She's trying to get the hero's soul. She wants to hurt him. She wants to seduce him from his wife. It's all about their sex. She is sensuous, beautiful, and the hero falls because they cannot resist. At one point, Princess Leia, when she has a few pieces of wrought iron covering her assets, and that's it, she tempts Luke to come and rescue her and causes some trouble. All right, Delilah, Juliet, watch a soap opera sometime. Platonic ideal heroine. This is a physical, not a physical relationship. This is like perfect love. You love each other from afar because she inspires you. You want to worship her because all good things, like they're intellectual and perfect. Princess Leia plays the ideal heroine when she is all in white, from the top of her little neck to the bottom of her little toes. She wears white, indicating not only that she is an initiate, but that she is the inspiration for the entire entrance of Luke Skywalker as our hero. All right? Very virginal, no sex, the Virgin Mary, Beatrice, and Dante's Inferno, and Princess Leia. Unfaithful wives, they're everywhere. They're married to a man, often unattractive. They cheat and often can bring down the kingdom. This one's tricky. King Arthur's mother, Igraine, slept with the king when she was married to another man, Borlois, and that little sin was ultimately going to then be passed down to King Arthur, who would make a similar mistake and bring down Camelot, and of course his wife Guinevere. And we're waiting to see about this Princess Leia thing. I don't know. Warrior woman, we've got a lot of these now. We love this. Our strong, our independent fighter. This was, again, a very rare archetype, the Amazons, until recently. We have Princess Leia, Lara Croft, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, my personal favorite, Katniss, Mulan. The list goes on. Watch a video game. The priestess. These are our mystical connections to the gods. They are virginal. The examples, the Oracle of Delphi in ancient Greece, where the ladies went into a cave. They sucked up the vapors, and then they could tell you your truth, right? They were not to be touched in any passable way. Or the ladies in ancient Egypt who ran the temples. Again, very virginal, very strong, controlled the fates of many. And the crone, this is me. This is the old woman, the wise woman, the medicine woman. However, because old is not fun and not attractive, we all know that they then must be evil. evil witches. And so the crone usually shows up and in some ways is always in danger. Okay, so we have all the characters down. Now we have to talk about what situations those characters find themselves in, and you will recognize every Disney plot ever. At the top, there's always a quest, right? I even have a little star by that because there's a difference between the quest and the task. And the quest is that big whole picture, the whole thing that will solve the problem in any universe or novel, all right? The quest is the search for a certain someone or lion, right? Or some talisman, some item, the Holy Grail, that when brought back will restore fertility to the wasted land, right? So a lot of people are like, oh, the quest for the first Star Wars movie is to destroy the Death Star. No, the quest is to restore freedom to the galaxy. One of the tasks, number 3 here, is to destroy the Death Star. And then, of course, in the next movie, there are more tasks that they have to complete until freedom is actually restored. In The Lion King, Simba, one of his tasks is to grow up, live long enough. One of his tasks is to kill Scar. But the entire quest is to restore fertility to the Pride Land. All right, so we have that necessity. We, in Star Wars, eliminate the Empire. In Finding Nemo, ultimately we have to find Nemo and bring him home. The return of Simba and the restoration of the Pride Lands. Our heroes, we already talked about them being initiates. Well, these initiates, which means initial, beginning, newborns, the initiation is the initiation into life. And it is when some adolescent begins to grow up and completes a few tasks and then reaches maturity. It's the rite of passage. One of the most important ones was our learning to drive and getting our driver's license. And then you get the what is really the equivalent of a nuclear weapon in the hands of a 16-year-old. Our rite of passage. Getting married is an initiation. Honor society is an initiation. Luke has to go through the entire first movie, all wearing white, both he and Leia wear white, they have all of these tasks, they're all learning to be adult, until at the end of the movie, if you'll notice, Princess Leia is now wearing a white dress that shows a little bit more of her skin, and her hair is down, and she's growing up, and Luke is wearing brown and yellow, earth colors, equivalent sort of to the yellow belt in karate, moving from white to yellow. The task we just talked about is different from the quest. You gotta save the kingdom, win the fair lady, some superhuman deed. The magic weapon, the important part of the magic weapon is that it symbolizes the extraordinary quality of the hero. Only our hero or heroine can use that magic weapon. Not everyone can use the lightsaber. They have to be trained to do it. Now, in the newest Star Wars, we think it's very interesting. Rey has never been taught to use a lightsaber, and yet, magically it comes to her. We know somehow or another she is connected to something special, that she's in fact a heroine in the Star Wars movie. The extraordinary quality, only Thor can lift his hammer. Captain America can make it jiggle, but that is it. Arthur is the one who uses Excalibur. Rapunzel had her hair, all right? We all know that. The ritual, human beings need ritual, according to Jung. The reason that we sort of lose our way in society is that we are no longer able to participate in the rituals that make us understand how the world works, which is why when someone dies, we have a funeral, and that funeral is supposed to help us deal with the change in the world. We have certain things that we have to do, that we have to order a casket or go to the mortuary, or all of those terrible things that we have to do, but each of those tasks help us deal with the death and then move on in our lives. It is like having a ritual for graduation. When you walk across the stage, you feel different. You think you won't, but you will. And this helps us understand our place in the world. This is who I was, this is now who I am. Rituals are completely necessary to feel sane. The journey. Our hero has to go in search of information or some truth that is going to explain to him who he or she really is. And this journey involves a descent down into hell, some kind of a hell, a psychological hell, a literal hell. Odysseus and Aeneas and Dante literally walk down to hell. And they encounter all kinds of things there, but usually they have to understand how strong they are and also understand their own weaknesses. Luke Skywalker takes a journey down. He does it a couple of times. One, he goes underground. In the second movie, The Empire Strikes Back, and he encounters Darth Vader. And Darth Vader cuts his head off. And he looks, and the head rolls over, and he realizes he is there. That symbolizes that he knows he has the capacity for evil, because every human being has the capacity for evil. And it is on our journey through life that we understand that we have this capacity and we make the choice for good or for evil. Now, if you're a hero, you didn't stay in hell. You got out. So all of our characters go through hell, but they come out stronger, not necessarily happier, stronger, alive. There is always this fall of innocence, just as we were talking about. Adam and Eve got kicked out because, Eve said, "Hey, Adam, you want an apple?" And he said, "Sure, baby." And then we know what happened. They got kicked out of paradise and discovered that they were naked. Luke recognizes that he's evil, and then when he faces Darth Vader, right? And Darth Vader cuts off his hand, symbolizing that he is no longer an innocent child. For a moment, Luke must have wavered in his goodness when his father said, "Joy, come with me, Luke." And therefore, he falls through the city of clouds. There's a big city of clouds right up there. And Luke Skywalker is up there, but he falls all the way down until he realizes that he is a tiny man in a huge universe. And he is not an innocent person. All right. Simba also understands, has a foal, he's afraid to go. And Nala is furious with him because he's not acting like a hero at all. He's like, "Not my business." We have death and rebirth all the time, played out in every kind of movie and in our rituals and in our society, on and on and on. We have things die, but we have to feel like that there is hope and there is renewal. So we have definitely the cycle of nature. We have spring, which is the beginning, and we have winter, which is death. So if you're reading anything and it's in the winter time, pay attention. If it's in the springtime, it's babies, right? Why do you think we have Easter? In the spring. All right, little babies come out of little eggs. That's how the Easter Bunny is important, right? It's all rebirth. Jesus is resurrected during the spring. And in wintertime, everything is dead. And so you do definitely need to pay attention when you're studying movies and archetype. Movies and books. All right, in this Lion King, if you think about it, Simba, when he returns, brings water and regrowth. So there's rebirth. Even though there had been death before his father died, Scar died. The Pride Lands died. But it is regrown. This is where we get our hope. And then, if you think about all of the resurrection myths of the gods, where they die and then are reborn. So it is very important that you pay attention to all of those things. Then we have the natural versus the mechanistic world. This is still a real truth that we think something is all natural, therefore it must be good. No, it just means that, poop is all natural. Doesn't mean that it's good for you. And that machines are somehow all evil. And technology, like your cell phones, you hear this all the time. Well, if you watch the Star Wars movie, anything that is natural, like the Ewoks, they're able to defeat the Imperial Walkers and the AT-AT, yes, by using sticks and stones. And the little Ewoks are like little teddy bears, and so they indicate that they are in fact good. Machines, the stormtroopers, and Darth Vader are wearing a machine-like mask. They look like robots. Now we know the stormtroopers are not robots, but they appear to be robots wearing this mechanistic face. Darth Vader is part machine, and that part machine symbolizes his evil quality. When his soul is saved, he He removes the machine. We see his ugly old scarred head, and Luke says, Father, I want to save you. And Darth Vader says, no, you don't understand. You already have. Because his soul is saved by denying the machine quality. So you definitely want to pay attention to that, but then George Lucas, being a lovely little nerd, is making a statement, the droids are machines, and yet they're heroes. So we're not supposed to then necessarily judge a book by its cover. Okay, the battle between good and evil, I have a star there, of course I do. That's because ultimately we want to believe that evil is defeated by goodness. And these are the stories, all of these stories, every Disney movie ever made, right? We want to believe that in fact something good can come from something bad. This hope is necessary for us to continue to get up the next day, that the sun will rise, that there is darkness, that spring will come after the winter. These are the things that keep human beings healthy and hopeful, and therefore these stories of rebirth and good versus evil continue to be told and retold forever and ever. Amen. All right. The unhealable wound is a symbol. It's either a physical or an emotional wound that our heroes have. Katniss has lost her parents. She ends up being a tribute. We have Darth Vader being a machine. We have Frodo's injuries that ultimately drive him to the grave havens. Luke loses his hand. And this is a symbol that he is like his father. He ends up getting a new hand, but he is part machine. He is partly wounded by his journey, and it's also an understanding that, again, no one is all innocent. Once you fell from the Garden of Eden, right, it is within all of us to have a touch of evil. All right, let's talk about those symbolic archetypes. These are really pretty easy. Light versus darkness, we already talked about that. That darkness is frightening and scary and unknown, and therefore, given how weak we basically are, other than our minds, it's terribly frightening. Where all things light, the dawn, the sun, it brings goodness. The light also can be knowledge, science. Darkness can be experienced as in the black belt of karate. So you have to be careful about that. And if anyone talks about dark as in black people, no, that is not what we mean. We are talking about no sun, no light. This is not applied to people. All right, water versus desert. Water is the single most important thing for all life on planets, right? And therefore it is sacred. If you see water, it is sacred. Now sometimes there will be irony, water by death. However, it is considered life, growth, sacred, clean. We baptize in water before we have any major ritual and or ceremony in our lives. We have a bath, even if we don't like to, right? We clean the house, spring cleaning, because it is purifying. Desert, on the other hand, is the absence of life and therefore is death. Sterility, which simply means you can't have life. You can't make a baby, you can't make a plant. And is the opposite. All right, so now we move to heaven versus hell. Heaven, we imagine, as human beings, is the place of the gods. God, right? Or just as the sun and all good things are up. It's where the sun comes up, it's where the generation of light, therefore the gods must live there. Mountaintops are sacred. The pyramids are built to honor the gods, and pyramids were built all over the world by peoples who could not chat with each other and say, yo dude, across the nation, I think I'm going to build a place for the gods and I'm going to shape it like a pyramid and then we'll have sacred rituals at the top. No. This is how human beings were able to understand the world, even if they lived in a different part of the world and were not able to speak to each other. Heaven is the gods, and we only imagine hell and in the dirt, way down deep. My daughter was 3 years old, and she was digging furiously in the sandbox, and I said, what are you doing? She says, I'm digging for the devil in the sandbox. I never really talked about the devil. Not sure where she heard it, but she instinctively knew that the devil was down. I did ask her, what would you do if you found the devil? And she had intelligence enough to say, run away. So, Dante, right? the Odysseus. They go down into hell. Hades is in underneath the earth. It is called the underworld, right? Mount Olympus, the gods. Do always pay attention to heaven versus hell. All right, innate wisdom versus educated stupidity. Some characters seem to have wisdom instinctively. These are often children or animals or the not very bright, but they instinctively know what is good and smart. It's called common sense to some degree. Most of the time, the hero doesn't have innate wisdom. The hero has educated stupidity. They're quite bright, and yet they do dumb things. Watch any movie where the hero just goes, they go into the house in a haunted film. What kind of person goes into the house when you know the ghost is in there? Educated stupidity. So if you want, when you're reading or watching a film, notice the person or the animal who says, I'm going to go in there, right? That is that common sense versus the intellect, right? It is our instinct versus our intellect. And sometimes we need to listen to our instincts because that is where the wisdom of the universe lies. Okay, so when you're watching Star Wars, pay close attention to R2-D2. He is incapable of speech like C-3PO, and yet he knows what's going on and trying to warn everybody all the time. Also, of course, notice Samwise Gamgee in The Lord of the Rings, who has the innate wisdom that Gollum cannot be changed, that Gollum has gone too far, and is warning Frodo that he too has gone too far by carrying the ring. That innate wisdom we ultimately see is the truth. All right, supernatural intervention in all of our stories. We have some kind of magic, some kind of important intervening of the gods. If you're watching Percy Jackson, the gods are really there. Hercules, they really are the gods. Sometimes they work with the hero, sometimes they work against the hero. We have magic weapons, although someday this will not be magic. And we have the sense that there is something other, a greater. You don't have to call it God. There is the Maker in Lord of the Rings. There is the Force, which is also a magic weapon, and the supernatural intervention that allows you to tap into something greater than your humanness, right? All right, we have fire versus ice. This one's kind of tricky. Ice is easy. Ice is death. Sterility, desert, nothing. In Dante's Inferno, people are always surprised to find out that the devil is not in fire. Dante put the devil in ice, the total absence of light and goodness. Nothing, sterility. And he sits there bored and chewing the sinners. Nothing is going on. If you notice in The Empire Strikes Back, it's ice. And the rebels suffer a terrible defeat on Hoth in the ice. But fire is kind of tricky. Fire gives us light. Fire is our first and probably foremost technology. We just keep growing it until ultimately we have the nuclear weapon, right? With fire, we could fight the enemies at night and frighten us. It gave us a chance to stay awake and to learn things and to discuss and to feel safer. So it is technology, it is science, it is innovation. Prometheus, the god who gave us fire, in fact gave us knowledge, gave us the world, and he suffered for it. Tied to a rock, having his liver eaten out by an eagle every day because fire gives us godlike powers, and the gods were not happy with that. Unfortunately, fire can also kill. It is the just most destructive of our agents, right? And so it has that duality, good, evil quality to it that makes it so important in any film. You should pay attention to it. Any film and or piece of literature. It's extremely complicated. Haven versus wilderness. Well, haven sounds just like heaven. Haven means safety. So if you're watching any of these stories that we watch, all these archetypes, there needs to be a place where the characters have a moment to regroup, to discuss, rest, calm down. Rivendell, right? Don't we love the elves? They go, it is a place of haven. They have a chance to reform or form the fellowship. And you'll notice that at the end of the film, they end up in Rivendell because it is the ultimate haven. And anything wild or in the wilderness is definitely something, again, unknown, frightening, dangerous. In the Scarlet Letter, all the people go out, anyone who goes out into the forest is clearly dealing with the devil, because we know that wild is bad. If you hear the wild child, we mean bad things. So that is, and Simba goes out into the jungle in The Lion King, and then becomes sort of a totally different animal, less sophisticated, hanging out with his little foster parents. And so we know that it is a dangerous place. All right, so we're done with that. Now we have to move on to some of the specific things for Star Wars. If you happen to be doing that with me, you need to understand the names. Because I will tell you this, that George Lucas had a man on the set of the film called Joseph Campbell, who wrote a book called The Hero with a Thousand Faces, and he intentionally added all of these archetypes in. Most of the other writers are just writing from what they know in their collective unconscious. George Lucas, on the other hand, was writing, trying to make sure that he fit in these archetypes. Okay, there are so many things to talk about in terms of the names. In fact, I've put the name of the website, StarWarsSelect.com, so that you, if you feel the need, can go and research to your heart's delight. But I'm going to give you the things that, for those of you who are watching this for my class, this is what I need you to know. Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan, as in Obi-Wan with the gods. Ken means knowledge in Old English and in German. Ben is son in Hebrew. Obi is the soul or heart in Swahili and also means comforting. Wan means dark in Old English. So his name is a combination of comfort and God, and yet there's that dark quality that all human beings have, showing that he's a fully balanced character. You'll notice he never wears all white. We also have the Jedi is Hebrew for beloved in God, by God, and the Jedi Knights, therefore, are our good guys. Han Solo. Solo means alone. Han is the outcast and the evil figure with the ultimately good heart. The only person he has is Chewbacca, who's not really a person, although you'll notice that he's a beast, so we should have known he's going to turn out to be a good guy. But he is a lone hand, so he tries to operate by himself. Ultimately, though, he recognizes the importance of being part of the hunting group of companionship. All right, Luke Skywalker. Luke is quite clearly associated with the idea of being a healer. That's what it means in the Bible. Luke the healer. He wears, has a blue lightsaber. The color of healing. We associate blue with healing, so you'll notice that water-like, a spa. And the fact that he walks the skies, meaning he walks with the gods, and that he is going to heal, restore fertility to the wasted land. We have Leia, Hawaiian for child of heaven, heavenly flowers, also the Hebrew word for delicate. And we have the word meadow. Yoda is yoga, or is that spiritual quality that we associate with yoga, but it also means Yodeya, meaning knowledge and wisdom, or the one who knows. And Yoda is one big, wonderful little ball of knowledge and wisdom. We also have the Dagobah system, which is the water planet. And that is, of course, a symbol of all the things that we associate with water, with life and goodness. And that's where Yoda is living when Luke Skywalker has to come and see him. Okay, so let's look at the planets. Hoth is the ice planet, all sterility. Of course, that is where they suffer their greatest defeat. The rebels do against the Imperial Walkers. And that's in the second movie when everything is very, very dark. We have Tatooine, which is a desert. And again, sterility. And Luke at one point says, well, if there's a brightest spot in the universe, this is the farthest place from it. And Jabba the Hutt, we find out later, lives there. The sand people, nothing good comes from this. And the newer movie, Rey, it's on a desert planet. So we understand how those archetype works. The Millennium Falcon. There is a suggestion, perhaps, that this is a nod to the Maltese Falcon, and then that makes Han Solo a little bit Humphrey Bogart. That seems good to me. But the Millennium is a big sense in literature and in mythology, the idea that some great change comes after 1,000 years. which is why 2000, Y2K, all of that was such a big, it's the fin de cycle, as they say, the end of a cycle, and then something new happens. And so Han Solo shows up in the Millennium Falcon, meaning something important is going to happen, and a falcon is a bird of prey, so we recognize that that's a pretty bad ship. Love the Millennium Falcon. Then we have, of course, these are just names that I need you to know. Some people don't know how to spell them. We have Chewbacca and R2-D2, and a few things, again, having George Lucas, having paid attention to every single detail, made sure that the Empire looked so much like the Nazis. So that if you look at the original A New Hope, you'll notice that the uniforms look very, very German, that Darth Vader's helmet is in fact a Nazi helmet, and he was making a point. It had, after all, been not that very long, in 1977, when World War II had happened, and he calls his warriors that would work for the Empire the stormtroopers, which is a term that the Germans used in World War I, but then became the most dreaded warriors during Hitler's reign. So you cannot get away from that. Notice, of course, that the stormtroopers are wearing those inhuman masks. They're robots. They're not people. They are wearing white, you say, but remember that underneath they're wearing black, which indicates the corruption of their souls. So you do not be misled. Again, a Nazi term. The lightsaber, the weapon of the Jedi Knight, and only those trained can use it. And please know that it is not a lightsaber or a lifesaver, although in fact it is. Let us make sure that we know how to spell it. And the Force. This is the magic weapon, the supernatural intervention. And George Lucas at one point said that he just tried to boil down all the world's religions into its single essence, which is that we are all connected to each other, that there is the capacity for both good and evil, and you yourself have to make the choice to be good, and that you can't, if things need to be in balance, yin and yang, white and black, all things. But, and so his universe is showing that we have the duality of human life. All right, that's all I have to say.